right, and we are back. So as everyone starts to make their way back into the sessions, I hope everyone is really enjoying the networking lobby feature. I see someone has already created their own networking booth. So that's amazing. That is a feature right here in the platform, as you can create your own little group chats, networking in the lobby. This session is NFT basics for Black creatives, or anybody, to be honest. And so today we have an amazing group of speakers who are going to really get into the NFT world as well as Web3. And Paf, who is here. Paf, where are you tuning in from?
So I'm in Edinburgh, Scotland, and it actually is sunny today, so it's a good day.
Yes, and it is sunny here in Philadelphia as well. Well, I'm in Jersey, but it's going to be sunny in Philadelphia when we go to our event. So that is amazing that in two areas where it normally isn't sunny, it's very sunny today. So we have some amazing luck in the weather. And I will turn it over to you, Pat. I will see you later.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Shannon. And thank you to everyone for jumping on and coming to this panel. I'm personally very stoked to join you all and lead the way and open this conversation up, because I think it's an interesting topic of conversation, and there's a lot of, mysteriousness about it. So I've got an awesome panel here that will kind of help to dispel some of it and, make crypto a bit less cryptic today. So starting off, I'll introduce myself. So, hey everyone, my name is Paf Avara. So I am the co-founder of Take Up Space, which is an NFT membership community. And we exist to create and support diverse leaders. So we really want to leverage NFTs to basically help provide education, resources, mentorships, as well as grants. And we're really focusing on BIPOC and LGBTQ people, which I'm personally very excited about. So I'm really, really excited to be speaking with some awesome people in the Web3 NFT space. So Jordan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for kicking this conversation off, Paf. To everyone joining, it's great to be here. I'm really excited for this convo. Also great to meet you, Daishan and Miguel. I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say, but I'm tuning in from Atlanta, Georgia. I am the co-founder of an NFT collection and a brand called Meta Moguls. We were previously known as Young Moguls brand, a clothing line that promotes financial literacy and entrepreneurship, mainly for young adults, but for everybody, even if they're young in spirit. And we're basically a community that's utilizing NFTs to bring together a global community of moguls who are looking to become more financially literate, who are hoping to learn more about investing, and hoping to meet some great friends as well. So excited to talk about that and learn from everyone else as well.
That is awesome, Jordan. I'm definitely checking you all out as soon as this is over. MetaMogul sounds amazing. Deshaun, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Paf. Pleasure to be here with everyone as well. My name is Daishan Hines. I wear kind of two hats. I'm currently the program director for the Philadelphia Global Identity Partnership, which is a private public partnership here in the city. But more on target, I'm the co-founder and CEO of MetroDAO, which is a mobile app that's designed to innovate civic engagement and stakeholder communication using Web3 technologies. So very much looking forward to having this conversation and seeing how NFTs could be applied not only to startups, but particularly social impact causes. So thanks for having me.
Yes, so excited to dig into that. Miguel, love to hear from you.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Great to meet you all. Great to be happy to be on this panel. Just an amazing, incredible event. So happy to be part of it. My name is Miguel. I am, just an all-around creative, natural storyteller. I started to build my personal brand on LinkedIn, and that's just led to so many incredible opportunities. One of those being joining the marketing team for NFTLA, which we just wrapped up a month ago. So that was, my first foray into NFT, but that just goes to show you that, you don't really need all that you needed back in the days to be involved in Web 2 now. And for, Web 3, it's just an open opportunity for anyone who's willing to put in the work, show up, and just put themselves out there. And so I help people tell their stories. I'm the chief empathy officer of Hola Verdad, which is in English, Hello Truth. So I help, executives tell their story, embrace themselves, and create opportunities for themselves, which, Web3 is all about community and telling stories. So I'm really excited to be here. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Oh, that is awesome. Love storytelling. You're definitely in the right place being in Web3. So I guess to kick it off, I think it's good to get back to basics and maybe cover off a few definitions. So we've already been talking a little about Web2, Web3. Does someone want to give me a bit of a brief explanation? What is Web3 in a nutshell?
Sure, I can hop in there. So I think it's interesting seeing this transition that's happening in front of us. Whereas right now, there's a lot of Web 2 platforms that we're really familiar with. Whether it's social media platforms we use on a daily basis, Instagram, YouTube. This revolution where we're able to socially interact with other people, and connect with other people, and have our online profiles, but there's usually a middleman that's sort of overseeing that connection, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, whatever it may be. So a lot of times we're seeing in Web 3, the big differential from Web 3, a lot of it is the same concept, but it's all kind of centered around decentralization, in terms of a lot of these interactions can be directly between me and Daishan, me and Miguel. There doesn't necessarily need to be a middleman, in our interactions. There doesn't necessarily need to be a middleman managing our funds, managing our data, that type of thing. So, in my opinion, Web 3 is all about ownership, really. It's all about giving the people the empowerment to own a lot of the things that they don't really realize. In Web 2 scenarios, we don't really own, we don't really have ownership of our data a lot of times, or we don't really always own our money. Other people might be owning our money and making interest on our money when we could maybe do that ourselves. So I think that's the biggest shift in Web 3, is just empowering people with more ownership.
Absolutely. I would love to jump in and add just a little bit to that, if you wouldn't mind. I have a background in, excuse me, advertising, brand strategy, marketing, and I see Web3 as an opportunity also to consolidate a lot of marketing efforts into, these easy to digest platforms without our traditional model of having to search from website to website to, get pieces of content that relates to a brand. So as far as removing that middle person as well, there's all sorts of finance implications when it comes to being able to make transactions in real time, and interact with consumers if you're a small owner, if you're an owner of a smaller brand. So the idea of being able to have your content, have your consumer interactions, and have your financial transactions all in one place, I think is a huge aspect of it as well that all of us can begin to utilize.
Yeah, no, great definitions by both these fine gentlemen. And I'd say, at the real core of it, for anybody that's just totally new to any of these terms, is Web 2 is the past, Web 3 is the future. So where do you want to be? Like Web 2 is leaving us, it's falling behind. It's what you've known in the past, it's the Facebooks, it's all that old stuff that you already know right now. And Web 3 is the things that you don't know. So what do you need to do? You need to catch up, you need to dive in. I think at the core, that's really just the basic for everybody, because everybody's always asking me, like, what's the big difference? I'm like, don't concern yourself too much with that. Like, it's the past, that's in the past now. Let's go on, let's look forward and dive in and figure out like what this is. Let's unwind it and really get to work.
I love that. And I just want to highlight a really great comment in the chat from Pascal. Web3 is about controlling the data versus being the product for tech companies. So I think if you think about it from a creator perspective, before I started Take Up Space, I was actually a TikTok creator. So I built up a community of over 90,000 people on TikTok, which was awesome. But, you know, TikTok could crash tomorrow and I would lose all of that community. And also by me creating that content for TikTok, the minutes, the hours, you know, I've seen the stats. I've had millions of views, which means millions of people have been watching my content and keeping people on their platform rather than necessarily benefiting me as the creator, who I probably got maybe like $50, which is, yeah, not great for the amount of time and effort you spend into it. So I really like that definition, Pascal. So when we're on the definition train, obviously we're here also specifically to talk about NFTs. So Jordan, would you be able to give us a bit of a definition on what is an NFT?
Sure. Yeah, I think this is always a fun part because everybody's always wondering what the heck is an NFT? What are these images? I can right click and save. Everybody's heard it all. So NFT stands for non-fungible token. So just in in the core of the definition, the idea of something being fungible is basically the idea of it being easily exchangeable for something else that's just like it or has the exact same value. So the idea I usually like to think about in terms of, okay, what are things that are fungible is, dollars are a great example of something that's fungible. If you and I both have $1 US, there's no difference between each of our dollars. They're exactly the same. They're worth the exact same amount of money. So items that are non-fungible are things that are inherently unique or different and hypothetically are one of a kind. So a lot of times these are things that we're usually looking at as collectible items like art or maybe trading cards or antiques. Those things that have that collectible value because it's not very easy to see something to just trade it for something just like that. It's seen as one of a kind. So this is where NFTs kind of come into play in sort of utilizing that idea of something being non-fungible, but also combining it with the token part. The token part meaning that this is, a token on the blockchain. The blockchain being this what people call a ledger of where you can see all past transactions is very transparent, and it can be clear. So where that's important for NFTs or for tokens is that it sort of brings this element into allowing people to own digital assets, or really prove that they own digital assets, whereas that was kind of difficult without this type of technology. And where this comes into effect with NFTs in the blockchain is that the blockchain's transparency is clarity in terms of being this ledger of all transactions makes it possible to prove a history of ownership, prove when this item was created, who it was sold to, who they sold it to, who they sent it to. And so where it was previously difficult to show ownership of a digital file or a JPEG or a movie file, it's now able to have this token on the blockchain that can be linked to it to show, okay, here's the person who's actually the owner, who has the rights. And not only that, it's possible to put in some other cool features like royalties. So one of the biggest aspects of NFTs is now, because we have this proof of ownership, whenever a piece of art, NFT art, is resold, part of those profits can be funneled back to the original creator, whether it's 15% or 10%, and you're able to sort of continually benefit that original creator as something is resold or passed on digitally or along the internet, where that wasn't really possible to do before. So that's why you're seeing NFTs being really popular in spaces like art, because this is a space where a lot of times previously it's hard to prove that something is legitimate. Someone may say that it's a Picasso piece, but how can we really prove it? It's hard to prove it sometimes. Or if an artist produced something and passed away and their career really took off later when they passed, a lot of times these artists or their families don't really see a lot of financial benefit from the eventual success because they don't get royalties automatically associated with that product that they created. So I think right now, obviously, there's been a lot of focus on NFT art, and everybody's focused on JPEGs. But I think the real thing to pay attention to is, okay, how can this technology on the blockchain be really useful, not only in art, but also maybe in real estate, also in music, and even just broader for a creator economy, like you mentioned, Path. How can this be used to empower creators to really take ownership back of their work, where I might not need to sell my music on Spotify? Maybe there's other avenues where I can sell my music as NFTs and continually get higher revenue and royalties from it. So that's my best sort of definition of NFTs and the value of it. But I think this space is changing so fast, we probably haven't even seen the real impact that NFTs can make on a global scale yet.
Absolutely, Jordan. And that was a great definition. Thank you so much for that. You brought up a bit of a taste of the type of use cases. I think, digital art is the most obvious one when it comes to NFTs, but you mentioned a few others. I would love to know from yourself or the rest of the panelists, what are some interesting use cases that you've seen that maybe are a bit more relatable to people? Because I think sometimes someone in the chat is mentioning, Bored Ape Yacht Club. That's not no one in probably our lifetime, or maybe is going to be able to afford one of those. So yeah, I'd love to know from you all, what are some more interesting use cases that you've seen leveraging this NFT technology?
Yeah, I'd love to, excuse me, jump in there and kind of reference some of the social use cases that are out there. Kind of speaking to what Miguel does in the mental health space, there is a Blaze Cats cat NFT out there where 25% of their proceeds go to mental health of America, and so far to date, they've raised about $300,000 towards a social good. But then you have other examples similar to like the Blockbuster DAO, which is a whole other aspect where basically you have the opportunity for communities to come together to make joint purchases through supporting or buying these NFTs within a collective that have a shared mission. And I think that kind of rolls into the business and social implications. Jordan said some really cool things regarding being able to track digital ownership. And when I hear that, that just screams IP to me, intellectual property. And it's been mentioned about the music industry, which is a really good example of, how you can essentially begin to fund your startup or your projects as a creative or an entrepreneur through community ownership. By creating collections that people that believe in your product or your brand can support, which turns into your startup capital. But by using some of these methods, you give a sense of ownership to that community that you're trying to reach, and you create added value to whatever brand or product that you're trying to put out to the world in general. So NFTs kind of serves as this additional mechanism to really, I think, connect with your audiences, get brand loyalty and ownership, and to again be able to remove that middle person when it comes to capital raising of funds.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Daishawn. Seeing a couple people in the chat mentioning UNICEF using NFTs as a fundraising tool. I think this is a really interesting one when you look at, decentralized philanthropy. I actually have a friend in the space who has a project called Honey Badgers. They're based in Australia. And her day job is actually working at a not-for-profit. So she kind of knows all the red tape and all the jurisdiction you need to get to fundraise and make sure that the proceeds are going where they need to go. So through her NFT project, she's kind of been able to cut out the middleman, empower the communities to be able to, buy an NFT, and that directly contributes to the change that she wants to see in the world, which is really exciting. Jordan, I'd love to know a bit more about, I suppose, the use case and how you've looked to utilize it for your own project with MetaMoguls.
Yeah, for sure. So, one of our inspirations behind starting an NFT project was really, Bored Apes was a big inspiration for us. There's a few different NFT projects that really caught my attention and really got me interested in the space. The first one was probably NBA Top Shot. just because I'm really into sports and, formerly was into trading cards and things like that. So the idea of, having the NBA licensing and being able to almost own and trade different NBA highlights, I thought that was really cool. And then, finding out about Board API Club, like a lot of people in the comments have been mentioning, sort of this social club that people have started to really resonate, and now you're seeing celebrities in it, and it's almost now sort of just a status symbol of association, and it kind of reminds me of, in the previous generation, maybe it was wanting to be a part of a country club or a really elite social status where people network and are able to just be proud that they're associated with it because of what it says about them. I almost see this as a digital version of it for the next generation of, instead of maybe wearing a Rolex or something like that, your what you have in your wallet and what you own digitally sort of says a lot about what you're into and what community you associate yourself with. So our background of starting it was, like I said, we had a clothing line called Young Moguls Brand, and we sort of informally had this community of people that were supporting us that um, we're interested in having a mogul mentality, that we're interested in entrepreneurship. And we thought that NFTs would be a way to have them engaged on a deeper level, almost sort of like a brand loyalty card, or sort of as being able to buy into a community, a community club that gives them access to a private Discord, gives them access to, networking opportunities with a lot of other influential peers from across the world, but also that gives them opportunity to join, what's known as a DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization. And that might be a different rabbit hole to go down. But basically, having one of our NFTs gives you the opportunity to join our investment club DAO, which is sort of like a club with a shared bank account, regardless of where you live in the world. There's sort of a shared wallet of funds that everybody in our group of NFT holders can vote on, what digital assets they want to use those collective funds to purchase. So we recently voted on purchasing Bitcoin and Ethereum, buying some coins from a protocol called Audius, and also we'll start like a collective collection of NFTs that we all own and can sell when everybody votes on selling it. So I think the biggest thing for us was sort of following that model of trying to create this social club, trying to create a collective where everybody can invest together and almost invest socially, in a new way too. So I think that's been pretty cool to see. And something I'm focusing on, even looking forward, is, I mentioned music NFTs, seeing how a lot of artists, instead of going to a label to start off their career, can maybe focus on building a community first and go into that community to raise funding to make an album or to release singles, and sharing those profits with the community, or even seeing how it's been utilized, like Daishan said, for data NFTs and for IP. I think we're seeing some really cool things start to come to fruition from this.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing a bit more about that. Miguel, I'd love to know from you, obviously wrapping up with the conference that you've been working on, has there been any other use cases that you've seen that are interesting or that you want to highlight here?
Yeah, one that I would say I'd love to highlight, just to kind of bring an understanding of how, these things can really work. Everyone's been talking about the Board API clubs, and I saw someone ask, what makes it so big, and really, I think the at the core of it is the community that they started. I mean, it started with just people coming together in the same interests, on the same mission, wanting to create something. You create a community around it, and you get people excited about it, and that's just what it's turned into. And now, as Jordan mentioned, it's a social club. But a friend of mine, Andy Wynn, he actually purchased a Board API club a while back, and now what that allows him to do is it gives him rights to being able to use the Bored Ape Yacht, image, being able to use the community. And what he ended up doing is they ended up opening up a restaurant in Long Beach it was just supposed to be a pop-up restaurant. So for 90 days, a burger restaurant that they popped up. It was called Bored and Hungry. And so this is based off of the Bored Ape Yacht Club brand. They used, their branding of their Bored Ape that they bought, that they purchased, branding all the cups, the fries, the burgers, and everything. It's brought in so much business. Now they're actually, instead of 90 days, they're there for good now. They bought the building and they're going to continue on. And so, buying an NFT gives you, licensing rights. It gives you opportunity. It gives you a way into these communities. It allows you to share resources, sharing, again, the community, and so there's, I think that's, one of the, just kind of really helps people understand like what is an NFT? How can we really use it? It's more than just, buying it and putting it up on your profile picture. You can actually utilize it and utilize the community that you've built around it, the hype that you built around it. They ended up Bored Ape Yacht Club. Now they have their own coin. The ape coin, and the Bored and Hungry restaurant, now they take ape coin, and there's other businesses around the country looking to take on ape coin, and so where you can pay, if you own that coin, you can pay with that. And so I think that's an interesting thing. That's one of the first big businesses that have come off of a licensing contract with Bored Ape Yacht Club or with any NFT out there. So I think that was an interesting use case scenario for sure.
That's awesome. I think it just shows the different mentality. And I mean, if we're all in the Web3 space, we can kind of attest to a lot of people in this space have more of like an abundance mindset. It feels like everyone is trying to build something together. And, in the Web2 mindset, you would get sued from Nike for, using the swoosh somewhere, whereas Bored Ape be like, yes, use it. And that kind of helps to build our brand. So I think that's a really interesting point there, Miguel, that you bring up. I guess I'd love to dive into more about, what are some of the considerations that people can think about? And obviously this is specifically talking about Black creatives, but, what are the considerations with people looking to get into NFTs or use NFTs? Is there some things that they should really think about before making that decision?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Excuse me. Because of course, accessibility is a huge issue. There's an analogy that I would like to use for business owners and NFTs, and I call it the Willy Wonka analogy. So one of the things is I've been seeing a lot of comments in the thread about scams and rug pulls and things of that nature. So the Willy Wonka analogy says, well, in order to have a successful NFT, you have to have a brand built behind it first. Right. You have to establish a community. You have to establish a brand to even generate attention behind it. Because yes, you can mint an NFT and put it out to the world, but without that development, it won't move anywhere. So what Willy Wonka did was he had a chocolate factory. Then he had this ultimate goal where he wanted to transfer ownership of the chocolate factory. So he created a golden ticket, and that got a lot of interest around the brand. And then people who got that golden ticket had privileges from that ticket that allowed them to come to the factory and then ultimately aid in a decision-making process. That golden ticket is an NFT for the brand. So whatever brand you have, just imagine, okay, I have a product, I have whatever it may be. In order to generate, engage that community, that NFT could be used as a ticket. And that's where the sustainability comes with it, because without any privileges, without a stabilized community behind it, without a strong brand behind it, yes, it's a rug pull, it's a balloon that's going to pop. But if you look at it as IP and a way to get user buy-in from that consumer base, it's sustainable because it's a non-fungible token, correct? There's always a record that says this is what it is and the privileges are what they are. So I just wanted to kind of lead in with that. Create the brand first, then the NFT.
That is such a good analogy. I'm stealing that. I will credit you. I'll make an NFT of that, and then we can all buy it. But that is so brilliant. I think you touched on a couple interesting things. First and foremost, being around accessibility, which I think is something that's really important, and definitely close to my heart. I think, when we're in the space and we're buying ETH, it kind of feels like monopoly money a little bit. But we sometimes maybe forget that it is very expensive and it is quite a big investment for folks to actually be able to invest in NFTs in the first place. I'd love to mention, I guess, one way that my project is helping, I guess, to alleviate that pressure with accessibility. So in terms of my project at Take Up Space, our NFT collection are called the Change Makers, and we kind of see every NFT as a membership access pass to unlock your inner change maker through all of the utility and things that we are providing. But again, not everyone can actually, afford to purchase one. And we are specifically creating communities for BIPOC, LGBTQ, neurodivergent, basically underrepresented communities. So they're even more, marginalized in that essence. So what we actually look to do is create our own coin. So similar to Ape, not as hyped yet, but essentially what people can do is contribute to our community. So that could look like writing an article, sharing a post. Maybe they're going to host like a movie night or a trivia night for our community. Basically contribute and give back in different ways, in whatever way that they can. Then they can start building this coin, and then they can actually unlock what we call the Changemaker curriculum, which is all about diverse leadership. So I think it's a really good point around, when we are speaking to these underrepresented groups, how are we building in accessibility? How are we making it easy to understand? And Daishawn, your analogy is a great way to kind of break it down for folks, but it's also looking at the pricing as well. So I guess the next question there is, in terms of, you mentioned before, Daishawn, of startup capital, I'd love to maybe dive into that a little bit more. What are the benefits for an entrepreneur going, okay, I'm going to create an NFT project and utilize this to build my capital versus going to VC funding, for example?
That's a great question. And I think the easy answer is that we all know it's not easy for diverse founders to go to investors or venture capitalists to get money. And we rarely have friends and family to get that startup capital as well. So, we always have to be creative in generating that startup income. And there are traditional models that exist. We're all familiar with GoFundMe or, the whole Facebook fundraising campaigns of that nature. So it's a similar thing, just again, cutting out that middle platform and being able to identify others who believe in your mission or believe in the cause and get them to, one, trust you enough to give capital towards that cause, but to also have a record of it where essentially is legally binding, and they're sure, that is less risky because you do have this notation on the blockchain that identifies the ownership. So particularly, again, looking at artist communities, I think it's easiest to see the impact that it can have there, where there's lots of pre-production costs that go into creating an album or a performance or whatever it may be. So imagine being able to use NFTs again to fuel that startup cost, simple collectible items that you could give out to a fan base that also gets them access, to whatever the show or product may be, but also provides that capital to allow you to begin creating. And I feel like that philosophy can be applied to any business, whether you're trying to do a show, an album, or create a new business or a nonprofit foundation. You could use those mechanisms again to just engage communities, sustain that community, and then also generate the capital as well.
That's awesome. And yeah, what you said at the start is completely correct. I mean, the statistics for the amount of Black and underrepresented people who get VC funding is abysmally low. I'm based in the UK, and I had a look. In the last decade, one Black female founder has received VC funding. So you're right. You need to be creative. It's a really interesting way of building that shared vision and purpose, and also getting, as we said, that shared ownership and kind of bringing people in on that journey. I think it's a really, really interesting way to leverage that. Cool. So we've
And
got
real
quite a
quick,
few. Yeah, go ahead,
Pat,
Miguel.
I was gonna say, I'd love to just touch on that. You know, you're talking about, like, you know, getting involved and the capital. I think the most important thing for everybody to start thinking about is, you know, don't just like dive into learning, but don't dive into creating your own business right away. Like, you know, build community, build relationships. This is the time for, you know, the BIPOC community to really create opportunities for ourselves. You know, and going out there. I mean, I've got, just from LinkedIn, built incredible relationships that are ready to invest in a product, in an NFT that I create, in a community that I create. But I'm not going at this like full, like just diving in, creating whatever, so that I can go to these people 100 times asking for their support. I'm going slow. I'm going intentional. I'm building a community. I'm building relationships around myself so that when I do create that product, then I can really get, you know, I've got that support and capital. I've got those people that are ready to invest. You know, and building, like, you don't have to own an NFT. I don't own an NFT, guys, and I'm involved in NFT community. By surrounding myself with the people that are in those positions to buy the Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, to spend $500,000 on NFTs, the people that are, you know, making decisions, that are making moves in this industry, building relationships with them, observing with, that's how I learn, is observing people, you know, watching what they do. And so, you know, if you're looking to get involved, don't think that you have to go out and spend, you know, thousands of dollars on an NFT. You can surround yourselves with, you know, the community first, get involved, give back to people, like Paf was saying earlier. Find a way to give back, whether it's value, whether it's your own knowledge, whether it's, you know, your little support, expertise. There's so many ways for us to get creative, as Paf was mentioning and Deshaun was mentioning. You know, get creative to get involved and you know, change your future.
I love that. So I think that brings us to our last question before we jump in and answer some questions in the box as well. So yeah, how can folks get involved with NFTs? Obviously, we've mentioned buying NFTs, obvious one. Getting involved in the community. Is there any, you know, other ways you can get involved? And also, do you have any advice for people who are thinking about diving into this headfirst?
Yeah, I'll dive in on that one real quick, just because I heard, you know, people asking this question too earlier. It's, you know, where do you start? There's so many people right now that are, you know, there's scams going on. There's people that are just taking your money to buy a book and then it doesn't give you no information. You know, I think one of the best, you know, places of resources for people to go and learn is LinkedIn. You know, Twitter right now is all the hype for NFT and you know, crypto communities, but it's really like growing, you know, drastically on LinkedIn, like super fast. There's so many people that are coming from the, you know, Twitter communities, thought leaders, the people that are making these decisions in the NFT communities, the people that are making decisions in the crypto communities. And so, you know, most people, for the most part, people on LinkedIn, because you do have to, you have to uphold your reputation there. I mean, you put all your, you know, your jobs, your listings and all that stuff, which, yeah, I know people can falsify things, but more often than not, people are pretty honest about who they are and what they're about on LinkedIn. And so, I mean, start there, go on LinkedIn, type in keywords, you know, NFT, see who's having conversations. I mean, if there's a lot of people in their communities, that means that they're, you know, trustworthy people. Also, you know, fact check people, make sure you're finding resource. Don't just take one piece of information and take it for, you know, fact. Like, make sure you find that piece of information in other places, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on TikTok, whether it's on, you know, online or in books and YouTubes. You know, make sure that you're finding these sources or you're sourcing information from different places so that you know that you're getting factual information, you're getting real stuff. But yeah, I think LinkedIn is super undervalued right now and underutilized in the NFT crypto community. And so that's a little tidbit for you guys. You know, get ahead of the game and start diving into LinkedIn, you know, NFT community.
Yeah, I'll jump in with a bit of a roundabout answer, but looking at it from a business approach, the underlying implication of an NFT is that it's an investment. So I would say approach it like a business and say, well, what's my mission and vision behind buying this NFT and or creating an NFT? What's the purpose? What's the end goal? Again, if there's not something tangible in the real life that's attached to it, it might be a scam, to be honest. So, you know, just always ask yourself, you know, when it comes to investing in anything, why am I doing this? What am I getting from it? And what's the end game with it? From there, there's, you know, like Miguel said, do the Googling and all of the research. You'll see all sorts of platforms. But if you start with those questions, you'll be just fine.
I agree 100%. Daishan, I'll just echo what you were saying. I think a lot of people don't focus enough on the utility and the benefits of the NFT, both from the creator and from the consumer side. I think, especially this past year, there's been so much hype in NFTs that a lot of times that hype comes with a lot of greed as well. And, people are trying to make a lot of money as creators or as consumers. And a lot of times when people come with the wrong intent, it can be very frustrating, or it can lead to the wrong outcomes. So I think when you come to this NFT space, it works better for you when you come with the right intent, in terms of, okay, I like this project because I clearly know that I can get value out of it in these ways, or I know that I can connect with this amazing community of people. And I think a lot of times you see that people who come with that clear intent, especially when it's like during a downturn or when the hype is gone, those are the people who end up, eventually reaping the best financial benefits, because that was just extra added on value. They were there for the other things, and because they had that genuine belief, that sparks the community to push forward and sometimes be very financially beneficial as well. So that's my piece of advice when creating and buying NFTs.
I love that. I love thinking about your why and making sure that whatever you're investing or contributing to is kind of aligning to that. And I think that also speaks to combating FOMO, fear of missing out, which is very rampant in the space, because the space moves at like breakneck speed. These things getting hyped, that's getting hyped. And also we have spoken a bit about scams. And I think what scammers kind of leverage is that emotion of not wanting to miss out. So they'll DM you saying, hey, this amazing, World of Woman galaxy is here. I'll give you a great price. And people are like, oh, that's a bit weird, but I really want that NFT, so I'm going to go for it. So I think you're right. It's like having that mental checklist with yourself. Am I doing this for the right reasons? Am I, leaning into the more of that greed or FOMO, or is this actually really aligning with me? So I think we have time for one question. So I think the first one, Chinwei, I think we've maybe we've kind of touched on that. So Pascal, his question was about what concerns should people have about the volatility of different coins and its relationship with NFTs, Web3, and blockchain technology. So pretty technical one there, but would love to hear from anyone to wrap it up.
Sure, I can hop in on that one. I would say that's a great question, because this is definitely a very volatile space in a lot of ways, whether we're talking about security or even if we're talking about on the financial side, just in terms of price. And that comes with pros and cons. Like you mentioned, Paf, and when we were backstage, this is something where we're really early, and this is cool to be in the space where you're very early, because that doesn't come very often. But with that comes some of the cons, in terms of a lot of things such as security are still being worked out. They're still being worked out in terms of best practices to protect your wallet, or to protect your funds, or to know the best ways to avoid scams. My advice would be, in terms of security, to always keep your private keys safe, ideally written somewhere in person, and somewhere secure that's not online. Because I think that'll be a big factor in the future, is cybersecurity and protecting a lot of these digital assets. And another thing is really trying to vet these projects as much as possible. I know a lot of times people want to keep their identity anonymous. I usually am more attracted to projects who are very transparent in terms of who the creators are, what are their backgrounds, and just being able to put a face with the name. Sometimes I think it makes it a little easier to avoid rug pulls. And then in terms of volatility financially, volatility is good and bad. Volatility is one of the ways you can make a lot of money in some spaces. But with that, like we said before, I think it's just important to see opportunity, but not get greedy, in terms of sort of trying to master the emotional side of investing as well, being able to know how much you're willing to lose. I think a lot of times the emotional side of it, of volatility, people can't manage that, because they're overinvested. And when you're overinvested, you tend to get very emotional and very attached, and you invest out of fear. And it's really hard to win in investing or in anything when you're moving out of fear instead of just genuine passion and interest. So I would say that, in my opinion, the best way to deal with the volatility and the upswings is to, not be greedy, to invest what you have and not try to get rich quick, but to genuinely learn and try to get into the space to find opportunities, but be there for good reasons as well.
Yeah, I would just add to that, like anything out here in the world, nothing has value unless people give it value or unless it has some sort of purposeful function. So similar to the way that you approach NFTs, crypto coins or currency is the underlying currency behind those. So it's the same sort of questions, like why and what's the reason. So why would you invest in a coin, and what's the purpose of that coin? To be very real with y'all, the way most experts are saying, like 98 or something % of coins that exist today probably won't be around tomorrow. But if you do enough research, you could look at the bigger ones like a blockchain or an Ethereum that has practical real world application that speaks to the sustainability of it. And that's something where, again, like any good investment strategy, you got to look at the sustainability. How long is this going to be around? Are people using it? Does it have a purpose? And I think if you approach any sort of investment strategy, and echoing everyone in the chat, if you don't have the money to use, it's like gambling, don't spend it. If you got $10, great, spend that. But if you need 100, for your rent, don't invest in it until you actually have that residual income. So it's all about knowledge, research, and making smart decisions that you can, really have a long-term vision for, versus, any type of FOMO or short-term bubbles.
Yes, some brilliant advice. I'm seeing, I think it's Ina is like jotting down all the gems you're dropping. So thank you all so much for jumping on. Really hope that this was a valuable conversation. I had a great time. But yeah, if anyone wants to pop in their LinkedIn to make sure we continue the conversation, as Miguel said, everyone go on LinkedIn. Twitter is the place to be for NFTs. But as we've been talking about, you need to do your research and make sure you're really getting to the heart of people. And it's a little bit easier on platforms like LinkedIn. But thank you all so much for jumping on, and hope everyone enjoyed the session.
Yes, thank you. So we have about 10 minutes before we go over into the next session, which starts at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if the speakers have about 10 minutes to hop into the networking lobby for all the questions that weren't able to be answered right now, they will see you there. So see you guys in about 10 minutes.